Well, welcome everyone to Relaunch Your Career, how to find the best job for you now. I'm Victoria Lambert. I'm the Education and Careers Editor at the Telegraph. And we are now into week one of the second lockdown, and the furlough scheme has been extended just to the end of March 2021, leaving lots of you with unanswered questions on future working opportunities. COVID-19 has changed the way we work forever. Side hustles have sprung up, careers have pivoted, jobs have been lost, and workplaces altered beyond recognition. With so much in the air, tonight we are going to talk you through how you can relaunch your career in midlife, show you where you can find support, and so much more. This will be a 1-hour session where we will be trying to tackle as many of your queries as possible. And I'm going to now introduce you to my first panellist, who is Dr. Charlie Ball, Head of the Higher Education Intelligence for Prospects, which is the website for grad jobs, postgrad study, work experience, internships, and graduate careers. With over 17 years of experience in graduate employment. Hi, Charlie.
Hello.
Charlie will be offering his expertise on this subject, which still applies in midlife. And joining us is Kedge Martin. Kedge is an independent, trusted advisor, coach, and entrepreneur. Kedge's mission is to create a better world through helping people achieve their potential at each stage of life. She currently runs 2 businesses to help her achieve this: Rut Busters, which is for senior professionals, and Forward Career Coaching for young adults. Hi, Kedge.
Hi, Victoria. Thanks for having me.
Right, well, I'm going to dive straight in because we have got masses of questions today, and we're going to just try and help everyone as much as possible. So the first question I'm going to throw straight to you, Charlie. How does one overcome imposter syndrome, which is bad enough when working in an industry you've known for some years, but then if you move into something entirely different, even when you've got all that experience behind you, how can you tell yourself? It's extremely daunting.
Good evening. My name is Charlie Ball and I suffer from imposter syndrome. So it's very common. I remember very vividly doing a session on this a few years back and talking to a very senior professional in his field. And he said, essentially, every morning I get up and I think, if today's the day the authorities come in and say, we realise you've been bluffing all along, it's time to just pack up quietly and leave. I'll leave without a fuss. Who led in his field. It's quite common amongst high achievers. It's quite common amongst very senior people. It's quite common amongst women as well, or people who are a minority in their workforce. It's a lot more common than you think. If you get up in the morning, or if you do a session, or if you are in a place of work, and you suddenly find yourself looking at all the people and thinking, "Wow, all these people are much better at their job than I am," the chances are there's somebody else in the room also thinking the same thing and not talking about it. So the first thing to do is talk to your, if you feel you're not, or if you feel this kind of feeling, firstly, make sure you've got a support group around you. As I say, it's not uncommon. It's not something people talk about a great deal, but it's far from uncommon. Make sure you've got a support group around you. Do talk to colleagues in a subtle way who will generally help to validate you and explain to you what your strengths and weaknesses are, and just be mindful that most of us, at least at some point during the day, have to bluff it at least a little bit.
I like the bluffing it is, I think, quite, it's that, fake it till you make it, isn't it?
And especially now, we are all in a situation, we're all a few months into a very new situation. Everybody is learning new things on the job. Some of us are, so some of you people will be very good at all of it. Some of us are having to find our way and fumble our way through the way things are going. So it's natural to doubt yourself. Don't let it rule your life.
I think what I'd like to add to that is try and make a list of all the skills and things that you are good at, so that you can actually see of the achievements that you've done in your past career, the achievements that you have at home, and actually you write them down and you think, do you know what, actually I'm pretty good at this and I'm maybe not so great at that, and just reassuring yourself every single day that actually you can do great stuff. And the reason you're in the role is because other people obviously think you can do the great stuff. So beware of the kind of negative voice in your head, you know, the chimp that says, oh, you're not very good. Actually, you're very, very good. And you just need to keep telling yourself that.
Yeah, that's good advice. I'm going to come back to you straight away, Kedge, with the next question, which is from Jackie Whitehead. And it says, I'm relaunching a career after a 15-year career break. Have you got any help to kickstart it?
Well, congratulations. I think that's, I mean, taking a 15-year career break is an incredibly brave thing and good thing to do. Be confident. And I think it's always worth knowing that actually you do have a unique set of skills. You have a unique personality. And although it can often seem confusing that roles and jobs are looking for a particular specification, it's important to know what you are good at and all those skills and transferable skills you've built up during that career break, to see where you can use them in the career choices that you look into. But take time to think about what you really want to do. It's the next phase of your life and you want to get it right. And I often liken it to kind of going into a garage, and you go into a garage and you say to the garage owner, I'd quite like a car, please. I want to get back from my career break. And the garage owner says, well, great, I'm delighted to help you, but what sort of car do you want? Do you want an off-roader or a people carrier, or what sort of car do you want? And, you know, is it green? Is it a gas guzzler? What sort of car? Because the clearer you are about what you want to achieve in this next phase of your life, number one. Number two, actually get some ideas as to really clarify your skills. Go back to writing that list of what you're good at, and then also write a list of what you really enjoy. And then you'll see that actually you've got a huge amount to offer potential employers. And hopefully that will give you the confidence to kind of go and find the right thing. But focus on what you want rather than kind of scattering again around.
I think it helps sometimes, doesn't it, to remember that lots of other people do things like this. You're not the first person to ever take a long break. And even as you are coming back into the workplace, someone else is leaving it. For whatever reason, you know, whether it's children or childcare or elder care or simply moving countries or taking a break. We all do strange things these days. None of us sit in the same desk for 30 years, do we?
And get the gold watch at the end of it. No, sadly not.
Damn it. Susan Brogan has a question. She says, with the events industry on hold, where she's worked for 15 years and now been made redundant, how safe would it be for her to go out on her own as an event manager? Or what other opportunities would you think there would be around event management? For example, like the wine industry. And I think, Kedge, I've got you down for that one.
Well, I think having studied, I think you said you'd studied wine during lockdown, so I'm intrigued as to what drew you to that and how much you've learned and what you think the opportunities are. If that's an interest of yours, then it's worth pursuing something new, and you will have transferable skills from your previous sort of environment of the events industry. And if wine is this kind of new route that you want to go down, there are lots of different areas, whether from the hospitality, of course, not a great area now, but in growing and in tasting and in marketing and all sorts of different routes. And presumably, if you did the course, you might have sort of group of people that you know from the course, or you can get access to other people who are also interested in the same industry, and start networking and exploring what opportunities there might be in that new route. And it might be time for change, or you might investigate it and think, do you know what? It's not quite what I want to do. I'll keep it as a hobby, and I'll go back to the events industry.
Do we think the event industry is going to come back, or is it always going to be changed? I mean, we're doing this, on Zoom or the equivalent thereof, and it's hard to imagine that. I mean, it seems okay. I mean, I've noticed some people are worrying about sound there, but on the whole, a lot of us are doing events like this. Is this a change in style altogether, do we think?
Well, I mean, talking to a lot of organisations and industries who are used to holding events, these work to an extent, but there is no substitute for face-to-face interaction, particularly for the networking side of things, which is extremely important, and just for the socialising side of things. I think the events industry is going to change, but when industries change, they need new skills and new blood. And so, whilst I think the industry is paused, and it will come back in a slightly different form. It might be bigger in some areas and smaller in others. But I don't think the event industry is dead. And I think what we're probably more likely to move to is more of these kind of online events, and then in industries, much larger, less frequent events. So, you know, you're in our sector, in the recruitment industry, you might see a couple of really big annual events where otherwise you might have seen 4 or 5 quarterly events, for example, so that everybody can still get together and do their thing and do the deals that are so important in the industry. To go back to the question of your previous lady, it's also worth stressing. Personally, I've taken a great interest in wine in lockdown, although perhaps in quite the same way. But to the aside, actually, the wine business has done pretty well.
Yeah, that's true.
Of lockdown, so it is an industry that's worth considering. In fact, one of the industries that's done the very best of all is distilling. So if you've been drinking gin in lockdown, you have been helping an important British industry. So carry on doing it.
Johnny, I'm going to stay with you for the next question. What would be your advice for graduates who have just entered the job market in securing a start? Because we know a lot of people have just entered the job market and immediately been flipped out again, which has been really tough.
That's right, and it's extremely discouraging. The first thing to say is don't panic. The Institute of Student Employers have just released their annual report, which shows that graduate training schemes are down, but only by as much as you would expect at the start of a normal recession. And this is going to be quite time bound. So especially if a vaccine really is on the horizon, I think most of the industry is expecting next year and is planning for next year to be better. So, and I'm going to say something now which will may discourage and depress some of your young graduates, but do bear in mind, if you're graduating at 21, you are going to be working for another 45 years, I'm afraid to say. And so, whilst at the moment it's very, very concerning and discouraging that you are a few months set back in your career, in the longer run, the likelihood still remains that you will get a decent job. Just hang in there. Don't be too discouraged and try to get the best experiences you can at the moment. Employers are very understanding. One thing to bear in mind is that we're all in this boat, and I think that will work out over the next few months. People are not going to forget 2020 in a hurry. So when you say, I graduated in 2020, even in a few years' time, employers will look at that and go, okay, we can make allowances for that. We remember, we were there, our kids were there, our employees were there, we were there, our friends were there. So don't panic, don't be too discouraged. There are still jobs out there, and there are still things that you can do, even if it's just setting up support clubs for you and your friends and your peers to say, look, we supported one another, because in the future there will be a lot more work like this, and already employers are starting to think, how do we actually support people in virtual working? How do we do that pastoral side of things? And if you're a graduate who's already in a group or a Zoom group or a Zoom club to help your friends, you've got a head start on what's going to be an emerging area of business.
Yeah,
I'd also add to, take the opportunity to learn as much as you can, and also to help out other businesses. You might be able to do some social media for a small business near you or family friend, or see what you can turn your hand to keep busy, and also to learn new skills, and also to kind of build up experience that you can show on your CV, so that when you are out there and when the jobs have opened up, you can kind of show that you've been proactive and taken the initiative for getting on with your career. But as Chris says, you're working a long, long time, so enjoy now in a way.
But actually, this advice applies to anyone who's being made redundant now, doesn't it? So if you've just been made redundant because of COVID, the same holds true. The skills that you can amass now are going to help you later, even if there's no job immediately.
And also, you've got the time to explore different interests to see what the new career path that you want, rather than just keep going on in the same one. So in a way, it's kind of stock take for you personally and your whole life. And actually then you can decide what you're going to prioritize on looking forward, both professionally and personally. So it's a bit of a bummer, but actually it's a good opportunity too.
So I'm going to ask that because I can see Andrew Boddington is asking. He's very busy on the chat. I can see that, Andrew. Hello. You've asked already, what specific tips and options could you suggest for the older middle-aged participant tonight? So we're looking at people who want to relaunch their career, or they've just been made redundant, and they're in middle age or older, whatever we describe that as now. What are your tips for them?
Well, sorry, Chris, do you want to go ahead?
Well, no, I'll let Kedge take this one, and then I will speak as an older middle-aged man.
You were thinking of yourself being one. Well, I think, I mean, it's only 10 years ago that the law came in about age discrimination. And now a huge amount is being done. We've got business in the community. We've got the age leadership czar, Andy Briggs, is a champion for older workers. So actually there's a greater momentum now to encourage older workers. And think of yourself, I mean, I worked a lot of time in Africa where many people don't have birth certificates. So people don't have the handicap of knowing how old they are, because, it is only a number. And there's a wonderful fridge magnet dive out. You're only as old as you think you are. So don't pigeonhole yourself thinking, God, I'm an older white middle-aged man, or whatever you might happen to be. And actually, just again, think of all the skills, think of all the experience, think of all the contacts you've got, and actually kind of distill those, and then think, well, what do I want to do next? So come from a position of strength and confidence, rather than thinking I'm at the tail end and I'm sort of rather tired and I might not have any opportunities, because there's a huge amount out there. And I mean, as I said, there's the business champion. You're in a big cohort. There are 12.5 million people over 65. I think you're probably 50s, and 47% of adults are over 50. So we make up quite a large part of the workforce. And employers do value what we bring, which is kind of management skills, life experience is invaluable. Just kind of maturity and decision making. And certainly there are a number of startups that really value the grey hairs that other people, the older, wiser people can bring. So there are lots of opportunities, so don't be disheartened. Remember Robert De Niro in the internship or the returnship. There are also a number of returnships, and that applies to both women returners and as well as kind of male older people. There's very good websites. I think they're going to put them up on here. Restless, which is very good, which does a number of sort of online courses. No Desire to Retire is a great one, which has advice and sort of job hunting and CV and interview preparation for over 50s. There's another one that kind of puts you into connection with headhunters called Not Actively Looking. There's a brilliant book called Disrupt Your Career, which a colleague of mine has written. Another one called What Colour is Your Parachute? So kind of take the time to think about what you want to do with this next stage of this one precious life of yours, and do it with confidence.
Yeah. Charlie, have you got anything to add to that?
No, I think Kedge has made the very crucial point. You're not old, you're experienced. We've always got to bear in mind employers want the best people for their job. Now, best is a very loaded term and can mean a lot of different things to a lot of people, but there are a number of sectors that struggle with occupational shortages and getting people with the right skills. So tech, engineering, all of those areas are short of people. And if you have the skills that they need and the experiences they need, and also I think Kedge has hit on a very crucial point, the contacts are immensely important here. If you've been working in an industry for 20, 30 years, you'll have a web of people that you know, and they will be immensely valuable to businesses. So instead of taking the view, I'm over the hill and past it, think I've got a wealth of experience, and any business that can bring in my experience and my contacts and my knowledge will benefit from that and sell it from that point of view. And most sensible businesses will not look a gift horse in the mouth when they see somebody who is capable and has a lot of experience and can bring a useful perspective to bear to what is. There are a few businesses at the moment who there are very few businesses at the moment who've looked at the last few months and gone, well, do you know what? We're going to just carry on exactly as we have been doing before.
Yeah.
They'll want perspective. Businesses looking for perspectives from elsewhere and experienced perspectives from elsewhere. If you've been in the workplace for a while, you've been through the last recession. You've probably been through the recession before that. You'll have been there and you'll have done it, and that's what people are looking for right now.
I think the other thing you can do as well, speaking as an older worker as well, I think is that you kind of have to find places where you can connect with younger people.
That's right.
There doesn't seem to be as big a generation gap anymore, I don't think.
No.
And I also don't think the idea that only young people can do computers holds any weight at all anymore. I think we can dismiss that. Anyone who can do it, who learns, can do it. So what about, for example, another slightly, I've got Jay Brown here. I don't know if Jay's with us tonight. He says, over 50, out of work for over a year, took a break after redundancy, not much confidence, need to get back into work, finding it hard to get a job and handle the gap in the career. What to do? Kedge.
I would go back to what I've said earlier, is actually make a list of all the things that you're great at and all the things that you're good at. Don't worry about the gap in a career, because actually, there are two ways. I think we're going to talk about CVs later, but there are two ways of doing sort of CVs. One is a chronological, where there might well be a gap, and another one is a skills based. So look much more about what skills you've got, what experience you've got, and to where would that add value? Because you are unique, you've got a unique set of skills, and actually it's a matter of, once you've identified those and you have to work at identifying them, then you can find where best to place them. So really kind of sit down and, whether it's kind of childcare and logistics and management of the family, it can be anything, all the things that one does, managing finances, you can kind of write a list and really start to see where that adds value, and then you see that in your kind of solid career behind, and repackage it once you know where you want to focus and kind of throw the dart at.
I can see that we keep getting people saying as well on the chat about this worry about the gap in the CV.
That's right. I think one of the things is that the way that people work has changed quite significantly in the last few decades, and the job for life is an alien concept to most of us. Most of us have, most people in this chat, most people we're talking to, my CV is not continuous. I doubt there are very many people in the media industry and working for Daily Telegraph who have no gaps in their CV. It's the nature of the industry. And I think we're all slightly mired in a kind of 90s, 50s mindset that we join the company at 16 and finish at 65, and if there's a hole in your CV, then that means something is amiss. No, that's not the way the world works. That's not the way the world has worked for quite some time now. So if you've got a gap in your CV, don't pretend that you did things that you didn't do. Don't lie on your CV. But that is very important, because you sometimes you do sometimes see advice saying, it's all right to tell a few lies in your CV. No, it isn't. If you lie in your CV and get found out, you will be fired. You will be fired. And I've seen it happen to people who were very, very well qualified in jobs they were good at, and they were lied on their CV, and you have to go, because you can't, how can you trust somebody who does that? How can you trust them with your clients? So don't lie, but be candid, list your strengths, as Kedge says. A chronological CV is only one way of putting your skills out, and just don't worry too much about large gaps in your CV, gaps in your CV, because we all have them.
And also,
and what about furlough? I've just seen coming up on the chat someone saying, well, I've got a gap now that's furlough gap. Yeah. Just say it. I was furloughed. This was my time. Because so many people.
You and 9 million other people.
Yeah.
And
that's obvious, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, but for the individual, that's a very personal and troubling and worrying experience, and especially if you personally don't know many people who are in that situation. Because most of the workforce weren't furloughed, but a substantial minority, and at its height, about 1 in 8 workers was furloughed. So it is going to be far from uncommon. Just say, I was furloughed. And again, employers, this isn't something that's going to fade from national consciousness anytime soon. So employers will look at that and go, well, you were on the front line of this, that, and the other. And again, you will have had experience of employment disruption that those of us who had continuous employment won't have had, and that will have given you a kind of resilience and a different view of the jobs market and adaptability and the need to be employed that people like me who work continuously won't have.
Yeah. Yeah. Kedge, I mean, let's stick with CV, shall we? We've got a couple of people who've asked, Mary's asked, can you direct me to the best tools or template for a CV? Are there any books that you can recommend for CVs or websites?
I did have some, and I think I sent them through to the Telegraph. There are a couple of CVs. One of the things I've mentioned earlier, not actively looking is a great place. I'm sure Chris has got ideas. But essentially, the CV is a kind of your marketing brand. So think about it as a kind of, you're a Coca-Cola bottle, and how can you be more appealing than the next one? Brevity. I mean, I've just been spending all day on interviews. Brevity and the opening statement is the most important thing. What can you summarize in 1 or 2 or 3 statements that will make you stand out? Because the hundreds or tens or other people will have similar skills and similar backgrounds, whether it's a degree or whether it's a history. But actually, what is that kind of 2-second thing that makes the reader want to learn and more and read more? You have to grab them in the first instance, and that's the hardest kind of summary statement that describes you. And then, as I say, it can either be chronological or it can be skills based. And what it does need to be done is it needs to be tailored for each application that you do. So if a job is looking for kind of skills and marketing, then try and put together where in your experience you've got those skills and marketing experiences or communications or team management, and respond accordingly by highlighting the key achievements that you've got. And you will have, because just every day of our lives, we kind of learn more skills. You just need to kind of recall them and then capture them and write them down. But essentially keep it brief. I advise 1 or 2 pages maximum, because you've lost the reader by page 3. And actually graduates often ask me, should it be 1 or should it be 2? Well, frankly, you're a graduate, you're not going to have that much work experience. Keep it short, just keep and be honest. Absolutely. Don't expand. Keep it honest, keep it clear, tell the truth, but give it context so that people can understand what you're talking about and your achievements.
I've noticed we've got a comment coming up saying, I was advised by a recruitment agency not to put my degree on my CV as I'm middle-aged and it's so long ago it's irrelevant. Agree or disagree?
Disagree. Although, I mean, it's not massively important, but it's still an achievement you have. And I think something that, especially amongst professional people, we kind of sometimes forget, most people in the UK haven't been to university and never will go.
That's
most people in the UK don't have degrees. Most of the workforce don't have degrees. And so it is an achievement that you have that helps you to stand out, and it's worth mentioning. I mean, even if it's just a line, I did a degree, here's my subject. I mean, you don't need to list all your modules. Getting a bit esoteric, it can be a bit problem. One of the things I see with postgraduates is postgraduates often say a lot about their degrees on their CVs, and it's often not terribly relevant. But if you're my age and like me, you have a degree in chemistry, I put it on my CV. I've got a degree in chemistry. I work for it. It's a thing I did when I was young. It's an achievement, and you put your achievements on your CV.
I think I've just spotted something. Sorry, in the remarks, Mia Paffrey says, "Stand out, make your CV stand out." She's suggested something called Canva, and I think it is quite important if you can make your CV more engaging. So it's not just kind of A4 black and white piece of paper. Make it slightly more engaging, so that when you've got hundreds of CVs, one of them stands out. So certainly use your creative skills if you can to make it just that little bit more creative.
Okay, I noticed that Shaylee's been very cheeky here and put up a link to the Guardian's advice on CV writing, but hopefully you won't need that, Shaylee, after we finished with you. Photograph. Put a photograph or not? No photographs. Is that like wearing perfume to an interview?
Probably. Absolutely not. I mean, it's a no-no. I mean, it was in our day, Victoria, but no, no more.
We did it then. Yeah. Okay, so no photographs, people. Right, just got that clear. So let's go to a sector here. So, Julie says she currently works in food retail. Apart from this sector, being a carer, deliveries and computer programmer, are there any other areas of employment which are growing? So moving aside from food retail, carers, deliveries and computer programming, where are the jobs?
Right now?
Yeah, right now.
Apart from them, health.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Unfortunately, Julie has just listed the areas of the economy that are growing, and that's the unfortunate state of it. Logistics and delivery is growing, care is growing, health is growing, elements of the food industry are growing, online retail is growing. Over the next 15 to 20 years, most of the organisations who predict the economy think that it's going to be science and tech that are the main growers, along with some areas of business services. So quantitative side of big data, for example. So if you're a data specialist, and that's not just real statty nerds like me. That's all the people who deal with market research and sales figures and all of this kind of thing, because we do have a bit of a gap in expertise in that area. And then well-being and fitness.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Particularly right now, because, as I say, although at the moment 27% of the workforce is on furlough, is working at home, but when you go into professional roles, it's 2/3. And we don't know what effect that's having on people's well-being. Certainly, I put on approximately 8 stone during lockdown, possibly due to my wine diet. But there's an increasing recognition there are health and mental well-being issues that are going to be we need to explore and deal with. So that's another area that's growing.
I think people forget some of the really, really obvious ones, don't they, as well? I mean, there's recruitment going on for teachers at the moment. Yeah. The armed forces, there's recruitment there.
That's
there's
right.
Service.
Right. The probation service is recruiting. The police have a big recruit on right now.
Yeah. And the old categories by where you applied have changed, haven't they? Yeah. It's not, you don't get one shot at one age with one set of qualifications. They're looking for lots of different people now.
That's right. The other thing to bear in mind, I didn't mention teaching because teaching's very cyclical. We're in term right now. At Christmas, they'll want more teachers, but right now, we're not. We're in term. So apart from all the teachers getting sick with COVID, then teaching recruitment goes very, very cyclical. That said, this summer, big teaching recruit. Next summer, there'll be another very big teacher recruit. So that's another one for the medium term to think about.
And there's another very good organisation called Now Teach, which looks for mature people going into the teaching sector as kind of older professionals and transferring their skills. I don't know how often they run their courses, but it's a great organisation.
Matthew Sanderson has just asked, teachers need masters, don't they? They need to be an NQ, to be a newly qualified teacher. A PGCE, a 1-year course, is usually required, but there are different dispensations if you have experience. Okay. And especially with shortages in a lot of key areas in IT, in science, in maths, schools are not about to turn away qualified individuals who can teach kids effectively. Yeah. Language is another area, so that's another option.
Let's talk about people with disabilities, either learning disabilities or physical disabilities. So anything ranging from something on the autistic spectrum to people who feel that they're struggling, that there are going to be no opportunities if you are in a wheelchair, or if you're working from home and you just actually cannot leave your house in order to do a job. Where do they look, and is there any support for them?
Right, the first thing, there are various organisations who, the first thing to bear in mind is that the majority of people who do not have a physical disability don't declare it. Yeah. And that's problematic, and you can understand why that is. So if you're epileptic or diabetic or autistic, the majority of people with those conditions do not declare it. That's problematic for a couple of reasons. I can understand why you don't do it, but it does mean that employers can't put in proper provision. And employers have to make provision for people who have disabilities. Now, increased home working may have some long-term advantages for people with mobility issues, in that they won't need to travel, and hopefully hopefully, that homes are set up for them. Employers at the moment are very keenly aware that they tend to underemploy people with disabilities. So be upfront about it, and don't see yourself, I mean, I know it's always said, don't see yourself as a disability again. Look at what you bring to the table. Look at the skills and the experiences that you have, and do bear in mind that there are very few employers who have enough disabled people, and so a lot of employers do worry that they can't serve their disabled clients very effectively. And if you have a disability, you have a level of understanding of your organisation's disabled clients that most of the people in the workforce won't have. So do not be afraid to mention that.
Yeah. Would that also be true for something like if you fancy trying to get a non-executive directorship or something?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of organisations are looking for non-executive directors right now. A diversity of perspective is extremely important. And as I say, particularly with people with physical impairments and people with groups under learning disabilities. My experience of working with autistic people is it often doesn't manifest as a learning. A lot of very, very able people, a lot of very entrepreneurial people have autistic characteristics. In my field of data analysis, some forms of autism mean that you are intuitively able to analyze data in a way that people without their condition simply can't manage, and some of our most able analysts are autistic. So I shy away from saying it's a learning disability, but autism is a particularly interesting one. And the National Autistic Society is extremely good at support in this area. Very, very good indeed. So they are well worth going to if you are on the autistic spectrum.
Kedge, I'm just going to bring you back to, because I've seen in the comments down here, someone said, how do you find out about non-executive directorships? Is it all rip-off websites, or is there actually somewhere you can go? I think this is absolutely true. I think there are a lot of, come and earn 10 grand a year and do nothing.
Well, precisely, yeah. So never part with your credit card. Never part with your credit card. There are a lot. I mean, Neural is one good one. NUROLE is a very good one for non-execs. There are lots of different search engines for non-execs. Again, it goes back to networking and finding out some headhunters that, although headhunters, you have to recognize that headhunters are working for the client. So generally, they're not going to hold your CV anymore. It's not like the good old days. But no, there are lots of organizations there's a great one called Women's on Board, which is particularly good for women, obviously, and getting them non-exec roles and certain sort of building the confidence and giving you the skills and identifying your transferable skills and where you could add value. There's also public appointments. So look at public appointments that essentially they're sort of non-execs, but not paid, obviously. Well, some are paid. But no, don't part with your money, because frankly, if people saying we'll get you a non-exec job and give us some money, then they're not kosher. So no, don't do that.
Okay. No, that's very useful. So let's talk about another kind of specific one. We've had some really fascinating questions, everybody, and I'm really sorry that I do know that we can't get to you all in time, but here are some really kind of good examples. Somebody says, how do you move from marketing to UX design? Johnny, I don't even know what UX design is. I bet you there are people at the Daily Telegraph who know what UX design is. UX is user experience, and it happens to be one of the hardest positions to retain people in right now, because everybody who has a website needs UX designers, and we simply don't have enough of them. Okay, do they earn a lot of money?
At all. And also, and I will say this, and this might sound bitter, the BBC nick them all. The BBC huge website, they scoop up all the UX designers, she says bitterly.
Charlie, can you earn decent money from it, and could you possibly do it from home? Those are the first two questions.
Yes and yes. Yes.
Okay, that's good. That's a good start.
It's a skilled role. It's very much in demand right now.
Do you need to know how to code? Someone's just put up.
Not as such. You need to know how to work with audiences to understand how their experience of things like this work effectively. Yeah. Because generally, if you're in UX, you're then telling the coders what to do.
That sounds good, doesn't it?
Yeah. But it does mean you need to be able to balance audience and market research and focus group skills often with the ability to communicate those changes to the techies who are then going to make the changes. And also there is a design element. Some UX designers, particularly small businesses, will actually have that UX, will actually be doing the designing themselves. But it's more about melding that audience research, focus grouping, market research side of things to create a smooth experience online. Very, very big deal right now, very hard to recruit. And if you're good at it and if you want to move into it, I would highly recommend it as an area people look at.
How do you move into it? Where can you learn it? Where can you
learn? This is the thing. UX courses are rather thin on the ground. Manchester Metropolitan are just launching an apprenticeship for it. But it's one of those areas. It's one of those areas that's come up very rapidly in the last couple of years. And so, in general, I would take a look at see if you can. We've got stuff on prospects.ac.uk which talks about UX design and what that entails, and then take a look when you see roles advertised, and you will see roles advertised, and talk to the people involved at organisations for what that exactly entails, because it's quite a new area of business and work. So there isn't kind of standard, it's not like we can say this is a UX designer, and to be a UX designer, you'll need this qualification and to have done these things. Judith McDonald says the UX Design Institute, which is a good thing. And there are a lot of these areas, these building up, because it's such an important area. We all have websites. We're all doing our own marketing these days, and it's an important part of that.
Let's try, how about something like this? Someone says, how do you move from fashion to interior design? Kedge, what do you think?
Well, I would think transferable skills are, fashion is creative. What have you learned in the fashion industry that you want to, and what have you learned? And what do you want to do in interior design? And, there must be a lot of overlap, whether it's fabrics or creative design, and there's a lot of synergy between the both. So identify really what interested you about your fashion industry, fashion career, and where you want to go in interior design. There are lots of interior design courses if you want to do, both free and also paid for. So if you want to hone your skills and kind of focus them down into interior design and have a qualification, something you might explore. But otherwise, with everyone we work with, we always say, if you want to make a change, you can make a change. It's just being determined to know what you want to do. And again, going back to focus and clarity and knowing actually you've got a huge amount of knowledge and experience to take with you. So just kind of package that up.
And I've got another one. Lizzie says, as a paramedic working for the past 7 years, she's now looking for a career shift. Paramedic's a very secure career, but not something that she wants to do forever. She knows she might have to go into further study, but she just doesn't know quite which direction to go in. It's going to be probably the biggest decision of her life, because she's going to be coming up to 30 to do it. Where can you go from paramedic?
A paramedic has a particularly valuable skill set. In particular, a good paramedic keep their head in a crisis. Let's face it, we've been going through one of those for quite a while now. But it's one of those areas. If you want to make a complete shift out of health, instead of thinking, "Oh, what can I do that's like a paramedic?" think of the skills and the attributes that you've gained from your job. Ability to deal with people in very stressful situations, cool head in a crisis. You'll have specific training, and you'll see they're transferable and highly desirable skills as well in a lot of roles. Somebody particularly who can talk calmly to others who are in a high state of stress. I can think of very few organisations who couldn't use people with those skills. So think of it in those terms. Instead of thinking I've got to do something like being a paramedic, look at the skills, and also think about what you like doing from the job. Well, what do you like doing? Do you like helping people? Do you like the excitement of doing something that's fast moving and always changing? Do you like dealing with the public? And think about how you can take the bits that you enjoy and that will get you out of bed in the morning. and a kind of job that would help you to do that. And the final thing to think about is, what are your values? Because actually, if you're going to work for an organisation, you will find that the job is, or the values of the organisation that you're working with will be just as important as the actual components of the job. A lot of us can give stories of working in what appeared to be a dream job, but for an organisation or in a structure that simply didn't suit us, and then going to a job that seemed like a stopgap, but you found the people were great, the clients were great, the business was great, the structure was great, and all of a sudden you're there for 20 years. And so do think about what you're looking for in an organisation that you want to work for, and you'll find that you'll broaden out your options a little bit.
That's
And
interesting.
you can find out your values. I think on our Rutbusters site we have a values assessment, so you can go on and actually work out what your values are. And your values are really kind of like your true north. They're the most important things, and they're very often not articulated, but they kind of affect us in our personal and in our professional life. You know, who do we want to spend time with? What sort of environment do we want to be in? So working them out and actually prioritizing them. Do you want challenge and or more security, or do you need finance more than dynamic workplace? You know, work out those values, because that will help you hone down exactly what you want to do.
Yeah. I was going to say to you, Kedge, Johnny has just asked a question. He says, I've been working in marketing for 3 years and it's very unfulfilling. I have lots of ideas of other jobs I could pursue, but find it hard to commit to any. How do I take the leap and go into something that I have no experience of?
Well, firstly, find out what it was about the marketing that you didn't like, and know that you don't want to find that in your new job. And also write down all your ideas and actually start doing it in a methodical way. You know, finding a job is a job in itself. You need to kind of have a process and a regular plan, and you need to maybe do 1 day of research and 1 day of networking and 1 day of applications. If you do it in a kind of orderly process, and again, you know where you're heading to, that will kind of give you the confidence that you're getting closer to where you want to get to. So identify what you didn't like, and it might well be not the role, but the values of the organisation, as Charlie just said, or it might be the work. Find out what you didn't like. I know that what you don't want, and then find out what you do want to do. And keep those ideas, because everything starts with an idea. So being creative and having ideas is the most valuable thing in the world today. We all need ideas and solutions, so keep thinking.
Shall we talk generally about networking and how networking we can do it in this, you know, I mean, it is difficult, there's no doubt about it with the pandemic, but there are certain truths that are true about networking regardless, aren't there?
Yeah, no, very happy to. I mean, networking, I mean, so I don't know what the data is, probably Chris, you know the data, but there are a vast number of jobs that you only get through networks, not through kind of job applications. So it's really important to know your networks. And very often people say, but I don't know anyone. And then you start unpicking it, and actually you do know people you were at school with, even if it's quite a long time ago in my case, or you do know people that you were kind of your fellow parents, or you do know people from your career. And actually generally people, even if you don't know them very well, are very keen to help. Most people have a helpful disposition. And if you email them and say, I want to have a chat to you about it, you know, I'm looking at getting into the industry that you're in, could you possibly spare 15 minutes for a quick Zoom call? You can do it. The key with networking is always then to say, do you know anyone else that might be able to help me, or kind of continue a discussion with? So perhaps you can give me one other introduction that I can then follow up with. And very soon it kind of exponentially increases the number of networks. And as I say, most people are very willing to help, but know what you want to be asking them for. So don't kind of stand and say, I'm just kind of looking for a job and I wonder if you can help me. You want to be able to say, I'm looking for a job in this sort of industry and this is what I can bring to it. And is there anybody I could meet or talk to that actually might be able to help me know more about the industry, more about what openings, where best to look, what's the kind of specific job sites and things like that.
Well, it's interesting because I spoke to somebody last week about very similar, and she said, actually, look at your LinkedIn. We've all got LinkedIn. We may not like it, but we all got it. And actually, print out all your contacts and turn them into a spreadsheet. and tackle every single one meticulously and mark if you've got back to them, mark what they've said, and as you say where else can I go from you? And she said, sooner or later somebody is going to come back and say, oh, weren't you asking about a job? That there's something going in my office.
Yeah.
And it seems it seems like an absolute pain to have to do that, but I suspect being methodical is the key.
It is absolutely the key. And LinkedIn is an absolute gem, because you're probably only 2 or 3 away from the person that you want to get to in the worst case, and a lot closer to many people.
Yeah. I mean, LinkedIn makes me laugh because actually we all pretend that it's everybody uses it, everybody goes on it, even though we don't know what we're there for.
But actually, don't connect with people out of the blue, because it's really irritating. And actually, so only connect if only connect if you've got a good reason to connect, rather than you just kind of want to build into more than 500 contacts. So be strategic about it. Be methodical and be strategic, and know what you want. It all comes back to kind of know what you want, which is the most important thing.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? People are networking on the chat here. Well, you guys are all networking away like crazy.
This is it. If I could just answer, Mia Paffrey's asked advice on how to network. I'm struggling to know where to start as a 21-year-old with no degree. The first thing to bear in mind is that most people find networking quite difficult, particularly if you've got. I mean, personally, it might not come across like this. I'm quite introverted. I am a nerdy, beardy scientist, and I don't feel myself to be a natural networker. And what the breakthrough for me was realizing that most people feel that way. But at the same time, everybody likes to be liked. Well, maybe not Donald Trump, but everybody likes to be liked. And so being friendly and genuine and pleasant is like we're doing here in the chat. People are being supportive and helpful and kind, and that's networking. And that's often all it takes. Just being yourself and chatting to people is often all it takes. And Kedge is absolutely right. The other secret, one big secret to networking, is about speculative applications. And the secret about speculative applications is hardly anybody ever does them.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so you think you see a job, or and the other secret is when you see a job being advertised and it says contact Charlie Ball for a chat. Nobody ever contacts Charlie Ball for a chat. Charlie Ball is sitting there waiting, and maybe 2 or 3 people contact Charlie Ball for a chat, and those are the people that Charlie remembers when it comes to the CVs.
100%.
And the other thing to bear in mind is your networks are, if you've built your networks there and they're people that they are there to be used. Don't save them for a rainy day. When you're looking for a job is the rainy day.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you have that network, you're looking for work, you're looking for a career change, work that network. I mean, don't really push people. Everyone gets uncomfortable about it, but don't be afraid to hit up people that you know, people that you trust, people that you work with, your family, your friends. As Kedge pointed out, the most common way, it's not the majority, but the most common way for people to find a job, even now, is through people they already know.
Yeah.
Around a fifth to a quarter of all jobs are found that way. The next most common is recruitment agencies. So it's more common to find a job through your network, and it's just as common for new starters in the workplace as it is for more experienced people. And often, if you've been to school, it might be people you know through college, or through school, or through university, who might just know somebody, or whose parents might know somebody, or your lecturers or your teachers might know something. So don't keep your doors closed. Understand that everyone thinks networking is it can be a little unnatural for a lot of people when you put in those terms, but really a lot of networking is just about being friendly and being pleasant and being nice and demonstrating to people that you're a decent human being that others can get on with. Because when all's said and done, the first thing is a route, every job application starts with the first question, or the first two questions. Can this person do the job, and will I like them, or will they get on?
Yeah.
And the third one is, will they turn up, actually? But that's why work experience is important, because it shows that you've turned up. And at root, those are the fundamental three questions that every job advert hinges around. And then the rest is dressing.
I noticed that Tracy in the chat has said that she usually hides in the loo when she has to network at an event. And look, we've all been there. When approaching someone, and frankly, I'm surprised we haven't met in the loo somewhere already, actually.
Yeah, but obviously I'll be different because I'm a bloke.
What's your opening line? What's your best opening line? I mean, mine would be, what do you do? So you try and get someone else to talk about themselves if you're nervous about talking about yourself.
Always open with asking people about themselves.
Yeah,
it puts them at their ease. Or either that or talk about the catering.
Yeah, that's true, because there's always catering. You're quite
Everybody's interested in the catering.
Yeah,
but I think it's true. Asking people about themselves is really important, because people very rarely have the opportunity to talk about themselves, and at least it shows your interest, and you're not kind of promoting yourself, and then the conversation will flow that much more smoothly.
Yeah, and listen.
And listen is the most important thing, is to listen. And
Duncan McDougall said that as well in the chat. Very, very shrewd Duncan.
Now, look, we haven't got long, guys. We've only got 2 minutes left. So I've got one question. I know, it's gone so fast. One question.
Sorry, everybody.
What is the most important thing to know about changing careers that no one tells you, and that's key to making it positive and successful?
All my experience of working with many career changers have always said, I wish I'd done it sooner.
Oh, that's good.
I wish I'd done it sooner. I wish I'd thought what was holding me back wasn't really holding me back. I wish I'd been brave enough. So actually go for it, and know that, most things work out. Know where you're aiming for, but it's a brave thing to do, but actually you and your life deserve it. So as I say, most people say, I wish I'd done it sooner.
Yeah. What about you, Charlie?
Spot on. And the other thing to bear in mind is, most people do it at some point. You're not alone. You are not alone. We've all been there.
Yeah.
We've all been there. It might be daunting, it might be alarming, but we've all been there. And you have qualities, and you have abilities, and you have skills, you have something to bring to organisations. And if you think about those and you list those out, you'll soon see that you have a great deal to offer. To fill an average vacancy costs thousands.
Yeah. So
employers are keen to get these. If you've got skills, people are not going to turn you down.
No, exactly.
Even now, there are plenty of roles that employers struggle to fill. Good jobs through sheer lack of applicants.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Kedge. We're going to have to close tonight. Thank you, everybody, for coming on and listening. Thank you for your questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to everyone, but as you can imagine, we've had a huge number of people attending tonight, and it's been fascinating seeing what you've brought as well. So thank you at home. And good luck, everybody. I hope you all find something good and get some answers to your questions.
Good luck.
Good evening, everyone. Good night.